Hotep, everybody. This is Michael Imhotep, founder of the African History Network and host of the African History Network show. It is Sunday, December 29th, 2024, and we are also celebrating Kwanzaa. So, Habaragani. Welcome to the African History Network show. We're joined by foreign policy expert Johanna Leblanc to talk about President Joe Biden's historic trip to Angola, the African nation of Angola, that took place on Tuesday, December 3rd, 2024, and the U.S. investment in Angola and the implications of this. So how are you doing today, Johanna?
I'm excellent. Thank you so much, Michael, for having me on your show.
Well, no problem.
Look forward to a very fruitful dialogue.
Yeah, no problem. And Joanna and I made contact through Roland Martin Unfiltered. I was a panelist on, and she has been on talking about Haiti and other issues as well. So I reached out to her and said, hey, let's talk about this. So before we go any further, Johanna Leblanc is a trained lawyer who specializes in national security law and foreign policy. She holds a Doctor of Jurisprudence, a JD, from Indiana University, Robert H. McKinney School of Law, and a Master's of Law in National Security and U.S. Foreign Relations Law from the George Washington University School of Law in Washington, D.C. All right. She has other credentials as well, as you can as you would definitely see also. So, Johanna, this was Biden's, if I'm not mistaken, Biden's only trip to Africa, as reported by the Washington Post. Talk about the significance of this, and also he visited the Lobito Corridor, which is an 800-mile trans-African railway project that the U.S. partly invested in as well.
Yeah, sure. Absolutely. Again, thank you so much for having me. Yes, President Joe Biden's trip to Angola was very historic in nature. And here's the reason why. First, the first president from the United States to visit Angola. Two, it was President Biden's only trip to the continent as a sitting president, which was long overdue. And as you know, as China, Russia continue to expand their footprints across the African continent, the United States is essentially playing catch up, right? China has been the #1 trade partner for the continent for the past decade or so. And in addition to that, most of the infrastructure projects, I would say about 60% of the infrastructure projects across the continent have been financed by China. So I think that Biden's trip, announcing the additional $600 million that will go towards the modernization of the Lobito Corridor, is a great step in the right direction. And in total, this project is going to cost roughly $2 billion, right? And what does this mean? How does this work, right? So what that means is that the U.S. government is working with, well, essentially DFC, which is the U.S. Development Finance Corporation,
Okay.
that is responsible for lending money to corporations that want to engage in projects in emerging markets. So what it means is that the United States is going to prioritize financing for these types of projects in Angola. So it's not free money that the United States is giving to Angola. It's money that private companies are eligible for through the U.S. Development Finance Corporation to finance these various projects. And the Lobito Corridor is significant in a sense that it connects Angola to Zambia, as well as to the DRC for the facilitation of trade and investments across the continent. And why is this important? It is important because, as we know, the African continent as a whole have agreed to what you call the African Continental Free Trade Area. It is a piece of trade policy that harmonizes the trading of goods and services across the continent. But one of the major impediments to actually implement this trade program on the continent is infrastructure.
Right.
Is bad, like moving goods from one part of the continent to the other. So the Libido Corridor project will support in the facilitation and also help with job creation and so forth, not just in Angola, but across the continent. So I think it's a great investment. And I think Biden's trip was a great trip. It was a bit late in his term. I wish he had gone to Angola a little bit earlier in his term.
Right.
But nonetheless, I think it was a great effort on behalf of the United States.
Okay, so when we look at the, for instance, the Libido Corridor, it's an 800-mile trans-African railway project, and it's designed to move minerals from Africa's interior to a port where it can be shipped to Western markets. Now, historically, when we talk about for instance, Walter Rodney's book, How Europe Underdeveloped Africa, or when we look at historically something like the Berlin Conference of 1884, where you had European nations to carve up Africa into colonies to continue to exploit Africa, things of this nature, right? The transporting of mineral wealth, and I assume this is the sale of, this is trade, this is selling minerals. Talk about how this is beneficial for Angola, if you could.
Yeah, before I answer that question, I think it's important that when we think of the African continent, we think beyond of critical minerals, right?
Yeah,
when
sure.
We look at the African continent as a strategic partner to the United States in fighting some of the greatest threats, whether it's healthcare, national security threats, whatever the case, well, health, national security, whatever the case may be. So I think it's important seeing the continent as a strategic partner to the rest of the world. And you think about where the continent is strategically located, I think is very important for the U.S.'s national security and strategic interest on the continent. But in relationship to minerals in Angola, I think it's great because obviously it helps to increase the GDP of Angola. We know Angola is a very rich country with its vast resources. And I think that it also helped to create more jobs in the sector for Angola, assuming that those resources would be used properly, right? And when it comes to job creation and so forth, because we see there are times when the country has vast resources, but severe poverty. You look at countries, for example, like the DRC, for example, which, you know, if you have a cell phone, DRC is responsible for that. Those minerals that are needed
Right.
to create these Apple phones are found in DRC. But if you look at the poverty that exists in the country, it is quite heartbreaking. So I think that, and I think President Lusenda is committed to this, to ensuring that the resources are utilized to help improve the lives of Angolans across the country.
So you're talking about Democratic Republic of Congo when you say DRC?
Yes, correct.
Don't know. And you're talking about coltan in the cell phones and the electronics, things like that. One of the which is one of the minerals, not the only mineral, but that's largely found in the Democratic Republic of Congo, coltan. Okay, so now you mentioned a strategic partnership, and a lot of times we don't hear when we hear about Africa. So for African Americans, a lot of times when we hear about Africa in the news, it's either about war, like in Sudan, or it's dealing with poverty, things of this nature. It's not something positive. So when you talk about a strategic partnership, here you have an African nation, Angola, in a strategic partnership with the United States, and you mentioned healthcare and national security. Can you give us some insight? Because when we hear, like I said, when we hear about Africa, we're not hearing about how Africa can help the U.S. unless it's a situation where it's being taken advantage of, so to speak. So talk about that strategic partnership a little bit.
So first and foremost, the African continent is comprised of 1.4 billion people, right? And I always say this, the continent's greatest resources are not necessarily its critical minerals, it's people. And we're talking about the average age of 19. That is significant. So that means the continent has a vibrant workforce. The continent is ready for business. The continent is ready for investors to come in and set up shops. The young people are incredibly talented and are ready to work. So that's one. Two, you look at the continent as a strategic partner in terms of when it comes to national security issues, because of where the continent, well, first, the transport of goods from one part of the world to the other to Europe in particular, because of where the continent is geographically located. That is critical to us. Two, when you look at issues like global health crises, and I think that if you did not understand the importance, if you did not understand the interconnectedness of people during COVID-19 pandemic, I don't think you'll ever get it, because you saw how one person all the way in Wuhan, China, who was infected, led to the collapse of our global economy and also led to the death of millions of people across the world, in particular here in the United States. So when you're fighting some of these global health challenges, you actually need the continent to be part of the conversation, part of the dialogue, and also to ensure that work together in greater collaboration to address some of these global threats. Because I always believe this: united we stand, divided we fall.
Right.
And oftentimes we have conversations about the continent without leaders from the continent being a part of that dialogue. And the United States, as it continues to maintain its position as a superpower, it is incredibly important to strengthen its alliance with the continent. As I said earlier in my introduction, Russia and China have really expanded their footprints across the African continent, and the United States really needs to catch up because of those things that I mentioned, the resources when it comes to the people, the investment opportunities that exist. I mean, you're talking about a continent that is growing very fast. So that means there's going to be a housing shortage. So people here in the United States who are perhaps in the development sector for infrastructure in particular can go to the continent, build homes and create housing for folks, right? And work with those who are already on the ground. You're talking about a continent, while there are vast resources, but we have a high unemployment rate in different countries across the continent. So it's an opportunity for American companies to go set up shops and hire young people in those countries, right? So there are vast opportunities because of the number of people that are on the continent, and obviously the ingenuity that also exists in places like Nigeria, Uganda, South Africa, and you name it. And then lastly, the national security aspect of it. As we know, in certain parts of the continent, you have extremist groups that have pierced through these various countries, and the U.S. has been greatly concerned and have a variety of national security related agreements with different countries to help address some of these extremist organizations. You have Boko Haram in northern part of Nigeria. You have other extremist groups across the continent that could find their way to the United States easily through the southern border and otherwise. So I think having these strategic agreements with these various countries are also important. So again, we can't look at the continent as just a case for humanitarian assistance, but also as a strategic partner as the United States continues to address some of our global threats.
Okay. All right. Excellent. I know I want to go to, I just want to show people this, this article here from the Washington Post, and people can read this some more. This talks about Biden's trip to Angola, and it's name of the article: Biden in Africa, decries history of slavery and urges partnership. This is from December 3rd, 2024, from the Washington Post. And a section of it here talks about, now here they show Biden speaking, and he speaks Tuesday at the National Museum of Slavery near Luanda, Angola. Luanda is the capital of Angola. And they have a National Museum of Slavery that is a tourist attraction, but a tourist attraction to educate people coming to Angola, especially African Americans. But in this article here, it says the centerpiece of Biden's visit in the Lobito corridor. Let me go back to it. It jumped away from me here. Okay. So it talked about the Lobito corridor. Then, but the heart of the president's appearance was his passionate speech at Angola's National Museum of Slavery, where he recounted the unimaginable cruelty of the enslaved person trade and America's brutal history of slavery. He also spoke of the U.S. Civil War, the fight against segregation, and the, quote, still unfinished reckoning with racial injustice in my country today, end quote. He went on to talk about, on Tuesday, he spoke to an audience of Angolan ministers, politicians, activists, and business leaders with his back to the Atlantic Ocean at a spot where enslaved people were loaded onto ships. He introduced 3 Americans who are direct descendants. So he introduced, there was one woman there who, Wanda Tucker, who's a direct descendant of William Tucker. William Tucker was the first African born here in the U.S. of those 30 and odd Africans that come into Virginia in August 1619. But also he talked about, he said, I'm going to go to a quote here, and I'm going to come back to you as well, but I wanted to provide people with this article so they can go do more research on this. He talked about, the emotional comments formed the backdrop of Biden's emphasis on investment in Africa, which have taken on a new urgency as minerals such as copper and cobalt become central to the high-tech economy, and America is increasingly embroiled in an economic and geopolitical battle with China, which is what you were just talking about. And I think it's important to emphasize, and I'm going to come back to you on this, Johanna, to emphasize investment in Africa as opposed to charity for Africa. A lot of times when we hear about aid for Africa, things like this is looked at as charity. But here, what Biden is talking about is investment in the continent of Africa. Talk about that, how whatever you want to add to that.
Sure. I think that while I understand the need for humanitarian assistance, but I also think there's an equal need for trade and investments, because at the end of the day, it is the private sector is really the backbones of any economies, wherever you may be around the world, and it's also true for the African continent. I think that many African governments, if not all of them, have expressed this. They want more cooperation around trade and investments on the continent, which is why the heads of state across the continent came together and put the African Continental Free Trade Area as the law of the land, which harmonizes the trading of goods and services across the continent. So whatever steps that the United States takes when it comes to trade and investment, it should not undermine the work that's already been put in place by the AFCFTA on the continent. Right. I remember President Nana Addo, when he first was sworn in, he made this speech in front of President Macron, which is the president of France. And he said, the continent is not looking for humanitarian assistance. The continent is looking for more so trade and investments. And that comment, although it had been made before by previous heads of state and other influential folks across the continent, even in the diaspora. But it spread like wildfire, right? People really resonated with that comment because if humanitarian assistance was the only approach to development, I think we will see not just the continent, but countries even in Latin America and the Caribbean, we will see a lot more development, because folks will say, well, the U.S. over the past, let's say, for example, for the past 3 years has given, let's say, $2 billion to, let's just say, Angola, hypothetically speaking, right?
Mm-hmm.
Why isn't it that, the country's GDP have not changed? Well, it's because humanitarian assistance oftentimes just put a Band-Aid on the issue. They don't always go to the root of the issue. And I think it's something that I think the U.S. Congress should really evaluate, right, about, how U.S. foreign assistance, humanitarian assistance is being used abroad. Is it being used effectively? Because at the end of the day, it is our tax dollars, right, that are being used in these various countries. But we want to make sure that our tax dollars are being used effectively and that we're actually addressing some of these, issues, right? We're not just putting a Band-Aid on them, that we're truly addressing them. So again, I think that Biden's historic visit was one that was long overdue. Right. And I think it re-energized certain folks who may have been interested in doing work in Angola. And obviously after that visit, it was announced by Corporate Council on Africa that there will be a summit that will take place in Angola in June, where private sector folks can go to Angola and just to explore opportunities that exist in the country for business opportunities. And also, I think it's important too, as we talk about the connection between African Americans and Angola, because right. we're seeing here in this country, the wealth gap is getting wider and wider and wider. So I think that as people of color in this country, we have to explore ways to build wealth beyond the 50 states that exist here in this country. And there are opportunities outside of the United States to build wealth in sectors like agriculture, infrastructure, healthcare, finance, right? Right. Across the continent, right? So I think that we have to be very strategic and very creative when it comes to wealth building, and not just looking at these 50 states that exist here in the United States, but also outside. But obviously, you do have to do your due diligence, making sure that you connect with the right institutions, the right individuals, and having the right lawyers on your team as well, to make sure that as you're doing these investments, that you actually reap the benefits that you intend on reaping.
Okay, excellent. Also, while Biden was there in Angola, there on Tuesday, December 3rd, he announced more than $1 billion, billion with a B, in U.S. aid for Africans displaced by drought and food insecurity. Just so people know as well. So this was a good piece from the Washington Post. Now, with the incoming Trump administration, what do you think or anticipate the commitment to Africa, the commitment to Angola, specifically the commitment to Africa in general, will be from the incoming Trump administration?
So what I think is, as it relates to the incoming administration, I think the Angola project will continue. In fact, I think it may even be expanded under a Trump administration, because again, remember, Trump is going to go hard when it comes to China, right? We understand that relationship, and Trump, the Trump administration will do whatever it can to decrease China's influence around the world, including the African continent. So in a way, it's good for Angola. And also, you saw who incoming President Trump has announced as the incoming Secretary of State, which makes it a difference. Senator Marco Rubio, who is anti-China, has been very vocal about his concerns about China. So I think for Angola, for this particular project, the Middle Corridor project, I think we're going to see probably an expansion of the project, even more money being poured into this project to ensure its success. But as it relates to Trump on the continent as a whole, I think this incoming administration is going to focus primarily on trade and investments, as it has before in Trump's first term. Trump's first term, he's the one that created Prosper Africa. Prosper Africa is the institution that is responsible for helping American businesses to essentially set up shop across the continent. That was his initiative. Also, with the U.S. Development Finance Corporation, Trump actually revamped that institution. Before it was called DFC, it was called OPIC. And under OPIC, in order for a company to be eligible for financing through the U.S. Development Finance Corporation, there needed to be a nexus between that foreign company and the United States. Well, when Trump revamped it, he removed that nexus, which means that you could be a hospital in Accra, Ghana, for example, looking to expand your hospital, and you need capital. You can come to the DFC and apply for financing, whereas in the past, that was not possible under OPIC because there needed to be that nexus. So removing that nexus was very important for those who do business in emerging markets, especially in the global South. And secondly, there's the Women Empowerment Initiative, which was led by Ivanka Trump. So if you have a company that is majority held by women, there's initiatives specifically for those companies, and there is a priority for those companies when it comes to debt financing. And obviously, there's you have to meet the qualifications. There's a process in place. But I think having removed the nexus that between the United States and the foreign company that once existed was a good thing, especially for those who are doing business in the global South or who will be doing business in the global South.
Okay. All right. Excellent. And we know Angola is the largest, as far as African nations, the largest recipient of Chinese loans. And Beijing has made more than $42 billion in loan commitments to Angola over the last 20 years as well. So we've seen significant investment in the African continent from China, but specifically in Angola also. All right. So let people know how they can get in contact with you, Johanna, how they can support you. Give people your social media handles as well.
Absolutely. You can find me on LinkedIn, my first and my last name, Johanna Leblanc. And you can also find me on Instagram, which is at I am Johanna Leblanc, my first and my last name. You can find me on Twitter at I am Johanna.
Okay, and on Twitter, I am Johanna. Okay.
Correct.
And where do you normally make media appearances? And do you teach classes? Do you teach are you a professor also? But where do you normally make media appearances?
So I make media appearances primarily on the African continent. My appearances have been on ABC in South Africa, Channels Television in Nigeria, Voice of America, Citizen Television in Kenya, television in Rwanda. So my niche is really the African continent in terms of media work. In addition to that, I'm also an adjunct professor at Howard University, where I teach a number of courses. So.
Okay. All right. Well, Phi Beta Sigma Fraternity Incorporated was founded at Howard University. So I have.
Absolutely. It's you.
Yep. So even though I didn't go, even though I graduated from Wayne State University here in Detroit at PWI, I do have a connection to Howard. And then also you appeared on Roland Martin Unfiltered as well on the Black Star Network, which is how we connected. All right. Well, look, Joe.
Also, too, one thing I would like to add is when I'm not teaching or doing television appearances, I'm also a partner at a law firm here in DC, and we also have offices in Ghana as well as in Nigeria. And part of the work that we do is we actually do support investors who wish to secure debt financing for projects in emerging markets, to secure financing, whether it be through DFC or Afri-Exim Bank or our financial partners in the Middle East or in the UK. And we also support foreign governments who wish to advance their interests here in Washington, D.C. And we also have a litigation shop at the law firm as well. So certainly, if you're looking to do business, or if you're looking for strategic guidance as you try to navigate your way around the continent, or even here in Washington, D.C., please give us a call, or go on our website. It's www.adomigroup.com, ADOMI group.com, and we would love to support you with your efforts, especially if it's on the continent or in the Caribbean.
Okay, adomigroup.com, ADOMI group.com.
Correct.
All right. Okay, Johanna. Well, look, you have a happy Kwanzaa, happy New Year. It's good to talk to you, and we'll have you back soon. Okay.
No problem. Thank you so much. I really appreciate the opportunity to join you this evening. And good work, my brother. And I always enjoy your commentary. Really a breath of fresh air. So.
All right. Absolutely. All right. Well, take care, sister. Have a good day. Okay.
You do the same thing. I wish you a happy New Year.
Yeah. Happy New Year to you too.
All right.
Peace. Okay, everybody. So that was Johanna Leblanc here on the African History Network show. And I want to go to this article, and I'm going to have to get out of here. There's some other topics I want to get to. I don't have time today. I have a jam-packed schedule, so I'm going to have to do another broadcast either Monday or Tuesday. Maybe Tuesday, Monday. I will hopefully have oral surgery on Monday. So I'm getting things in place for that. So we'll see how I feel Monday night, if I can do it, or Tuesday. But there was a good article from the New York Times dealing with why Black Americans searching for their roots should look to Angola. Okay. And I just want to highlight this quickly here. I thought I had this up. Let me see. Where is this? It's from the New York Times. Hold on, let me grab this one. And the reason why it's important, we know those, first of all, African people were here in the land we call the United States of America, going back tens of thousands of years before the transatlantic slave trade began. And I encourage people to read the first Americans were Africans, documented evidence by Dr. David Imhotep. You know, we had Dr. David Imhotep here on the African History Network show about 13 times before he passed away in 2023. Okay, so this piece right here. But those 28 odd Africans is actually close to 30 that come into Point Comfort in Virginia in August of 2019. They came from Angola. Okay, they came from Angola. So even though there is a focus on West Africa, and there should be, we also have to look to Angola. You have about 20% of African Americans have ancestry that goes back to Angola. All right. And then when we look at Angola prison in the state of Louisiana, the reason why it's called Angola, the reason why the prison is called Angola is because it used to, that prison is on land that used to be a slave plantation. And the majority of the Africans that were on that plantation and enslaved, the majority of the African slaves on that plantation came from Angola. That's why it's called Angola prison. So when we look at this article here, why Black Americans searching for their roots should look to Angola. This is by John Elegant for the New York Times, December 1st and December 2nd, 2024. And briefly here, it talks about how historians believe that people from the southern African nation of Angola accounted for one of the largest numbers of enslaved Africans shipped to the United States, including the first to arrive at Point Comfort, Virginia in 1619. That history has largely gone unnoticed in Angola and the United States, where many Black Americans often make pilgrimages to Ghana and Senegal in West Africa to trace their ancestors' treacherous journeys, but not to Angola. Angola is trying to change that. Angola is trying to change that. Now, the country's Ministry of Tourism is developing a global campaign, to highlight the significance of Masangano. The ministry is also partnering with the United Nations Development Program and the American Chamber of Commerce in Angola to launch a crowdfunding campaign to rehabilitate the village and its historical sites. And then it talks about it talks about the National Slavery Museum near Luanda, which is the capital of Angola. And they spoke with Stefan Lubkeman, Lubkemann, who's an anthropology professor at George Washington University. The piece says, when President Biden travels to Angola this week, he is scheduled to visit the National Slavery Museum near the capital, Luanda, to highlight the bond between the two nations that was born out of slavery. A vast majority of African Americans have Angolan ancestry. A vast majority of African Americans have Angolan ancestry, says Stefan Lubkemann, an anthropology professor at George Washington University. In the battle for influence in mineral and oil-rich Angola, that gives the United States an ability to draw historical and cultural ties to the country in ways that China, its rival, cannot. About a quarter of all enslaved Africans confirmed to have arrived in the United States came from a region that included Angola, according to Slave Voyages, which is a digital database. That is more than anywhere else in Africa. That is more than anywhere else in Africa. All right. So read the rest of this article here from the New York Times. Why Black Americans searching for their roots should look to Angola. This is from December 1st, updated December 2nd, 2024 by John Elegant, and photographs by Brother Silva. Okay, Joel Silva. All right. Be sure to visit our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. Register for the online history courses that I teach. We have a class going on right now. Ancient Kemet, the Moors, and the Ma'afa, understanding the transatlantic slave trade, what they didn't teach you in school. We deal with thousands of years of history and what leads up to the transatlantic slave trade taking place. I teach that class on Saturdays, 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, The class is on sale $60 right now. We have a special promotion during Kwanzaa. It's a $130 value. We do the sessions live. All the sessions are archived and recorded. You can go back and watch it anytime. You can download my class lesson plan here. So we have 200. It's a very interactive class. Okay. You can ask questions. You can see me. I can't see you, but there's a text chat. You can ask questions. So there are 200 slides that I show in the class. We have 80 to 100 articles that we reference. It's a very visual class. You can see me. I can't see you. And there's 15 books that we reference also. You don't have to buy any of these books to follow along in class. There's video clips that we show as well. I show you excerpts of the books right on the screen. And I'll also incorporate excerpts of interviews I've done with some of our scholars like Tony Browder. I was with Tony Browder today here at Detroit Unity Temple Church here in Detroit. Tony Browder, Professor James Small, Professor Kabahayawatha Kamene, Renoko Rashidi, and more. This content is PG-13. You can use this with your children. Here's the class lesson plan. You just scroll down. You can download this. So we have a class lesson plan for each class. Okay. And we deal with thousands of years of history and what leads up to the transatlantic slave trade. Your understanding of politics is directly related to your understanding of history. So you can register for that. Hold on. Let me see. I got to turn the screen share back on. So we have this at our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. And let me see. Top of the page, we have the information for the class. So just scroll down. The content is PG-13. You can use this with your children. Next class is Saturday, January 4th. We do the sessions live. All the sessions are archived and recorded. You can go back and watch it anytime. Okay. You still have access even after the course is over with. And you can also support us through PayPal and Cash App. $ the AHN show through Cash App. And you click on the link here for Cash App. It takes you to our QR code right here. This helps us keep doing the research. So if you want to donate $5, $10, $15, $25, $50, $100, because we don't get a lot of support in December and January. Those are our two slowest months. So those months are like really challenging financially for the African History Network. And this helps us pay the bills, stay on the air, keep broadcasting, pay for all these services I have to use to do what we do. And then this is our link for PayPal. You can click on that also. Okay. My DVD lectures, digital downloads, we have all that here on our website as well. When you scroll down, and we have my 15 lecture bundle pack. That's on sale $75. We have it in DVD format and digital download format. Okay. You get 15 of my lectures, all different topics. So click right here and it will show you the different lectures. You get them on all different subjects. I have my lectures dealing with the film Black Panther, Wakanda, and the new one, Wakanda Forever, that came out a couple of years ago. We have it dealing with the origins of Black History Month, Malcolm X, Dr. King, the distortion of the legacy of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., the revolutionary. The revolutionary will not be televised on the television. We got 6 principles of political self-defense, understanding how laws and policies impact the economic conditions of African Americans, 13 forms of wealth, keys to entrepreneurship and economic empowerment, because I taught entrepreneurship for 7 years, ancient Kemet, the winter solstice, and the history of Christmas. The first Americans were Africans, documented evidence. This is a double lecture I did with Dr. David Imhotep, who wrote the book, The First Americans Were Africans, Documented Evidence. He's an ancestor now. Redistributing the Pain, How African Americans Fought Back with Economic Boycotts. This is a 4-hour lecture that I did showing how we utilize different types of economic withdrawal strategies to fight back against white supremacy and racism. The Light of Ancient Egypt Awakens the African Mind to Economic Empowerment. Ancient Africans in America before Native Americans, Columbus, or slavery. Great African Women in History, the Mothers of Civilization. This is a 4-hour presentation where I highlight dozens of African women all throughout our history. A Black Panther analysis for children, African culture and history. I did this presentation at the Charles H. Wright Museum for African American History here in Detroit, and I was speaking to about 65th through 12th graders and their teachers, showing them how they can use different themes and elements from the movie Black Panther to teach actual history, to teach real history, and how to take that enthusiasm that our children had for the film Black Panther to teach actual history. And then also this presentation I did in 2017, African American resistance in the era of Donald Trump, voter suppression, reparations, and how elections have consequences. People that listened to me back in 2017, we would not be dealing with a second Trump administration. All right, so this is all at our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. And then if we go back here, we scroll down, we have my other, so right here, it shows my different lectures on DVD, and some of these in digital download format. And then we have the double lectures I did with Professor Kabahai Watakamene, as well as Dr. Leonard Jeffries, 2 of my teachers. We had the bundle packs from Dr. John Henry Clark and Dr. Yusuf Ben Yakinen, and this lecture that Dr. Francis Cress Wilson did in 2013 here in Detroit, the Cress Theory of Racism, Surviving Racism in the 21st Century. Okay. All right. So you can check that out at our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. All right. So we definitely need your support, especially in this going into the new year this month, but also going into the new year. And you can contact us through the website as well. All right, look, we have to get out of here. Remember, at the African History Network, we focus on educating, empowering, and inspiring people of African descent throughout the diaspora and around the world. Because right now, it's correct wrong behavior. What you do for yourself, what you do to yourself, and what you allow other people to do to you and get away with is based upon what you think about yourself. What you think about yourself is based upon what you have been taught about yourself. What you've been taught about yourself is based upon everything you've read, heard, and seen about yourself. Later in the week, we'll talk about other topics. We'll talk about the movie The 688, starring Kerry Washington, about the 688th Battalion in World War II. You know, I was talking about the 688th back in 2020, even before Tyler Perry announced this movie. It's a fantastic movie. Watch it on Netflix. We're going to talk about it here this week on the African History Network show. Also, we'll talk about the MAGA Civil War that's taking place. I'm going to share some clips from when I was on Roland Martin Unfiltered on Friday, December 27th, the second day of Kwanzaa, Kuji Chagalia. We know today is the fourth day of Kwanzaa, Ujamaa, Cooperative Economics. But we talked about the MAGA Civil War that is brewing over the H-1B visas, and how Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy are calling for more immigration of those that possess high technical skills on the H-1B visas. And this is at odds with the largely non-college educated white working class MAGA base. Okay. And those that actually understand all this saw the contradictions that were taking place in this MAGA coalition to help the traitor-in-chief Benedict Donald get reelected. But there's a MAGA civil war taking place right now, and I'm here for it, and it's going to get worse. Also, we'll talk about President Joe Biden commuted the sentences of death row inmates, except for three inmates, 3 white inmates who committed heinous murders, like Dylan Roof or Dylan Roth, who killed 9 African Americans in South Carolina, Mother Emanuel African Methodist Episcopal Church. And then also the Congressional Black Caucus is asking President Biden for a pardon for Marcus Garvey. Now, you know, when I appeared on Roland Martin Unfiltered back on December 13th, 2024, we talked about President Biden giving commutations to about 1,500 people, as well as a smaller number of pardons. And I said then that he should do a pardon for Marcus Garvey, Assata Shakur, and Marilyn Mosby, as well as members of the Black Panther Party for self-defense that are still in prison, and others. Now, in the Congressional Black Caucus, we have roughly about 20 members or so of the Congressional Black Caucus that are calling for a presidential pardon for Marcus Garvey. Also, we on Roland Martin Unfiltered, we discussed how Mississippi State University, Mississippi State University has been asked to perform for at the inauguration of Benedict Donald, the trade-in-chief, the man who incited an insurrection, a man who spread lies and put the lives of Ruby Freeman and Shay Moss in jeopardy, the two African-American female Georgia election poll workers, because he lost the 2020 election, the man who lied on Haitians and said they're eating dogs, they're eating cats in Springfield, Illinois, and put the lives of Black Haitians in jeopardy, and who wants to deport them. Okay, that son of a bitch, that's who I'm talking about. Okay, just in case there's any confusion. Okay, the trade-in-chief Benedict Donald. So the Mississippi Valley State University Mean Green Marching Machine has been invited to perform at the 60th presidential inauguration parade, and they're raising money. They're trying to raise $350,000 to pay for them to go perform for Donald Trump, whose policies are anti-African American, who wants to get rid of diversity, equity, and inclusion, wants to get rid of DEI, who said he wants to unleash the police, and he wants to give police 100% immunity against criminal prosecution. Okay, they've been invited to perform for this guy, and my question was, what the hell are you celebrating? What are you celebrating? Have you read Project 2025? Have you looked at Donald Trump's policies? Donald Trump he wants to close the Department of Education, but also he's threatening to he's threatening to give reparations to white people who are harmed by policies coming from the Department of Education. Okay, he's against reparations for African Americans, but he wants to give reparations to white people. So we'll discuss this and more later in the week on the African History Network show. So there's been a lot of backlash against Mississippi Valley State University when it comes to them going to perform for Donald Trump. And I said when I was on Roland Martin Unfiltered, they need to go talk to Chrisette Michele, who performed at the 2016 Trump inauguration. And it took a few years for her career to recover from the hit, because she lost a lot of money. She lost a lot of stature with African Americans. There was a big backlash against her. So I don't know if there was an adult in the room when this decision was made to accept this offer to perform for Donald Trump, who incited an insurrection on January 6th. And he was trying to overturn the election results and overturn the votes of 16.9 million African Americans. And then you're going to have African Americans at a HBCU to go perform at his inauguration. What the hell are you celebrating? Was there an adult in the room when that decision was being made? So we'll deal with that this week here on the African History Network show. I've got to get out of here. Remember, right now it's correct wrong behavior. It's not over till we win. Wakanda forever. And we'll talk to you next time. Peace.